Story of crime and punishment tonight from Indiana. This time the criminal is getting out of jail.
Welcome to our channel. Today, we are delving into the tragic and heartbreaking story of Sylvia Likens, a teenage girl left under the care of a strict authoritarian whose idea of discipline was physical abuse that escalated until the abuse victim died. The abuse was carried out not just by the caregiver but also by her own children, some as young as 10, and by other children in the neighborhood. For weeks, even months, the torture of Sylvia Likens was casual entertainment, something to do in the afternoon before dinner and favorite TV shows. At least a dozen children participated, or at least watched, and none felt sufficiently disturbed to tell their own parents. Now, let's tell her story. Sylvia came from a big, poor family in southern Boone County. Her father, Lester Likens, only finished 8th grade and worked many different jobs to make a living. He had a laundry route, worked in factories, and sold food from a cart at carnivals. In the summer of 1965, he and his wife decided to go back to selling food at carnivals. That meant they needed someone to take care of 4 of their children. The oldest, Diana, was already married. The 2 boys, Danny and Benny, went to live with their grandparents, leaving Sylvia and Jenny. A mutual friend introduced the Likens to Gertrude Baniszewski, who lived in a large rented house at East New York and Denny. She agreed to look after Jenny and Sylvia for $20 a week. Gertrude was already caring for her 7 children. From the start, Sylvia clashed with Gertrude's 17-year-old daughter, Paula, planting the seeds for the tension that grew in the house from July through October 1965. One day, the money order from Sylvia's parents didn't arrive as expected. Jenny later testified that Gertrude took us upstairs and she slapped me, saying, "Well, I took care of you 2 for a week for nothing." The money order arrived the next day. Gertrude was frail and underweight, but she had 2 tools for corporal punishment, a fraternity-style paddle and a thick leather belt left behind by her ex-husband, John Baniszewski. She started using the paddle on Sylvia and Jenny for minor offenses like exchanging soft drink bottles for change at a nearby grocery store. When she suspected Sylvia of stealing, she burned the girls' fingers with matches. When Gertrude felt too weak from her asthma to discipline the girls, her 17-year-old daughter, Paula, assisted her. Neighborhood children also began coming to the house to join in the torture, kicking, and beating Sylvia. Others put their cigarettes out on her skin. She was forced to undress in the living room and insert an empty Coke bottle into her vagina while Gertrude and a group of teenagers watched her. She was also forced into a scalding hot bath following the beatings in order to be cleansed of her sins. Sylvia was severely beaten and burned for wetting her mattress while sleeping, and Gertrude decided she could no longer live with her children. Sylvia was eventually not allowed to leave the house. She was thrown down the cellar stairs and locked in, given crackers for food, and refused the right to use a bathroom. Gertrude Baniszewski told her children that Sylvia was a prostitute, and she's proud of it. So we'll just put it on her stomach. She took a large needle and began carving the phrase, "I'm a prostitute and proud of it," into Sylvia's stomach. Richard Hobbs, a neighbor boy, finished the etching.
In which Bob Hoover spoke with Richard Hobb, who explained what he did to the girl.
All I did was write that thing on her stomach, then I hit her about 10 or 15 times.
How come?
Well, mostly because Gertie told me to.
Did you scratch it on there, paint it on there? How'd you do it?
Well, like I said before, Gertie wrote it down there with a pen, and I did the rest. She showed me how to do it, and then...
Had Gertie abused this girl?
Yeah.
When Baniszewski realized Sylvia might be dying, she forced her to write a note claiming a group of boys had beaten her. The plan was to blindfold her and leave her in the nearby woods with the note. Sylvia attempted to flee, but Gertrude and one of the boys stopped her, beating her and throwing her back into the basement. Sylvia Likens died on October 26, 1965. The cause of death was determined to be brain swelling, internal hemorrhaging of the brain, and shock caused by extensive skin damage. Sylvia also suffered from extreme malnutrition. She was buried at Oak Hill Cemetery in Lebanon. At her trial the following year, Gertrude Baniszewski denied any knowledge of the torture, claiming the children were responsible. She pleaded not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity.
I did never beat that girl. Never. She was beat up on by other girls. In fact, my own daughter stopped her in the jaw and broke her wrist. And so, I mean, there you go. And girls around the neighborhood beat her up, bloodied her nose. One girl broke her nose, in fact, I think.
Were you ever in contact with the police on any of these occasions?
Well, in the last 2 weeks, in fact, I think if you talk to my daughters, I'd ask them that. The children's father and I are divorced, and he's a policeman in Leech Grove, or was. And I've asked the girls repeatedly to call their dad and ask him what to do. And in fact, I asked Jenny, I said, Jenny, and I told Sylvia, I said, Sylvia, I'm going to have to call the police or somebody because I can't have the responsibility.
But the police were called only one time, and according to Hobb,
Well, I'll come in and she come up from the basement, and we noticed she's cold and everything, so we carried her upstairs, give her a warm bath and artificial respiration. When she stopped breathing, we gave her a warm bath, and then she stopped breathing. And so I gave her artificial respiration for about 10 minutes, and then I went and called the police.
by the time police found the girl, she had been dead some 8 to 12 hours.
On May 19, 1966, a jury found Gertrude Baniszewski guilty of first-degree murder, while Paula Baniszewski was found guilty of second-degree murder. Richard Hobbs, John Baniszewski, and another neighborhood boy, Coy Hubbard, were convicted of manslaughter. Gertrude and Paula Baniszewski were sentenced to life terms at the Indiana Women's Prison in Indianapolis, while the boys received sentences of 2 to 21 years at the Indiana State Reformatory in Pendleton. In 1971, the Indiana Supreme Court granted Gertrude and Paula a new trial due to a prejudicial atmosphere, but Gertrude was again convicted of first-degree murder on August 5, 1971. Paula pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and served about 2 years in prison. The three boys were released on parole for good behavior in 1968 after serving about 2 years each. In December 1985, Gertrude was released on parole. She changed her name to Nadine Van Fossen and moved to Iowa, where she lived in obscurity until her death from lung cancer on June 16, 1990. Paula married and moved to a farm in Iowa. Thank you for watching. Sylvia Likens' story is a reminder of the importance of vigilance and compassion. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content. Remember to stay aware and take care of one another.